Hello, and thanks for joining me at IT Home Lab Online. In this video, I'm going to create a template in Proxmox for the Ubuntu 26.04 operating system. I've done a few videos now with the Ubuntu operating system, so I thought it might be time to do a template so that you guys can see how much quicker and easier it is to deploy from that rather than rebuilding your operating system every time. There's still a few things that we'll do when we spin up a new template, like running the updates and that sort of thing. But for now, let's get started. So first of all, I need to open up my Proxmox server. If you haven't already created a Proxmox server, I've got a video that I can link below for you. And we will say create a new virtual machine. Leave the default numbering system, that's fine, and we'll call this Ubuntu 26.04 SRV for server. Select the ISO image that I've previously downloaded, but I'll include a link as well so you can download that and then upload it to your Proxmox instance. So next, changes to Q35 just to give us a bit more modern compatibility. Now for the disk, I'll leave this at 32 gig. You do have the option of changing that later, but for now, just because it's a template, it doesn't need to be huge, so I'll leave it at 32 gig. CPU, I'll increase that a little bit just to give us a bit more grunt. Again, you can fine tune that based on what your requirement is. Again, you don't need a huge amount of RAM. I've got 32 gig on my Proxmox server, and you can see over here I've got 2 instances running. This Docker one is only using 4 gig, and this is using 8 at the moment. So for a build, I probably set it to like a minimum of 4. Just so that you're not impeded when you're doing that installation progress. Leave the network interface as is and confirm. Okay, that's created. So what we'll do is spin that up, connect to the console. And you can wait for the 30-second timeout or just hit enter. Now we go through a few basic questions. I'm going to set mine to English. I'll leave it on the keyboard on English US. I'm going to do Ubuntu server. You can do minimized. I just found that that can be a little bit limiting for most of my projects that I'm doing. So I'll hit enter to select the default Ubuntu server. I'll leave it on the default network card and hit enter. I don't use a proxy, so I'll leave that blank. Just wait for this to finish finding the packages. If you interrupt it, it does ask you a few extra questions that you don't really need, so just hit enter on that. Okay, now I'm going to use the entire disk because it's my virtual disk. It's only 32 gig. I'm not going to set up LVM groups because I just find that it's easier to expand or shrink the disk later if I need to. So I'll tab down to done and hit enter. And everything's right. It automatically sets up the disk for you. So you just say enter, and then you have to actually go down and select continue. This is because if you were doing this on a real machine, it would wipe the hard drive, so it could potentially be disruptive. Okay, I'm I'm going to use a default name, and the server name I'm going to call it template, just so that it forces me to not be lazy when I deploy this. And rename it in the host file. Pick a username that will match my name and choose a password. I'll use a low-level password here because I want to be able to remember this, and I don't want it to be the same as any of my unique passwords that I use for everything else. So once I've done that, I'll tab down and hit enter. And we're not going to enable Pro, I don't have a paid subscription, so skip for now, continue. I will install OpenSSH server because I use that for pretty much every single one of the projects I use. Tab down and hit done. And I won't install any additional software for now, so tab again and done. And we'll let that go through. And we're done. So now I'll tab down to reboot now, hit enter. It'll prompt for me to remove the media because it's virtual. I don't need to do anything here, so just hit enter again. There we go. So now I can sign in. And I can make any customizations that I might think are useful for all of my projects moving forward. So you can see here that there are some updates that are available. So what I'll do is I'll do a check for all the updates. Okay, we'll have a look at what's there. Not that it really matters. In this instance, I'm going to upgrade everything. Okay. Do a distribution upgrade, so it grabs absolutely everything. And I'll do a -y. That's just so that it doesn't prompt me again to say, am I sure, when it determines how much space and that sort of thing it's going to take. Now this is also an opportunity. You can install any additional software that you might potentially use. So I believe it's already installed by default in 26.04, but I put in the -y. I like to install tmux, which is a terminal multiplexer, which means that you can effectively create a session and tab out of it and then come back to it later. So it's also good if you're using SSH to remote in. If your connection gets broken, it doesn't interrupt whatever you're running and you can reconnect to it later. I also like to install curl. I find that I use that a lot for just accessing websites and things from within the terminal. So those are the two pros for me. And I've also got some packages here that aren't being used, so we'll tidy those up as well. And again, adding -y at the end of the command, just to make sure that it doesn't prompt me again. Okay, and there we have it. So that's our template created. We can now go back to Proxmox. Well, first of all, we'll shut it down. So we'll do a power off. We'll close this window. Wait a moment for Proxmox to catch up. Okay. Give it a right click and say convert to template. Yes. And that's done. So now we can, next time if we right click on that, we can do a clone and it will create a new machine for us. So that's all there is to that one. So if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe and hit the notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.